A debate, the 22nd of March, 2025. There are people who do not deserve to be thrown in the ranks of disbelievers. From those people are Christians who were born into the tradition because their parents, grandparents, and community have been Christian. It also does not help that people who claim to know the right way to worship, those who claim to understand the truth about religion, do not go around trying to spread the word in a peaceful manner. The man hit the table with his cup and shouted, "It is only because of the media." "No," the other man replied, "it was not only the media. It is true. Those who claim to know the right way to God and the right way to worship God did not try to spread the word peacefully. Here I am saying it again. They waged war against Christians and Jews. They did not explain to them like they ought to have done." Wiggling his finger in front of him, the other man said mockingly, "How many fingers am I holding up? Have you had too much to drink? You do know that tea does not cause intoxication. I'm speaking to you knowing exactly what I'm saying. Muslims should not have waged war against Christians and Jews. They should have taught them what was wrong, and they should have reached a consensus through debate rather than war." He stood up from the chair and said, "But who is paying the price now? Are we not the generation upon whom everything was laid bare? We are supposed to correct the mistakes of our ancestors, so here we are." The other man laughed and repeated, "Here we are." Every group of people find that it's their job to spread the good news about their religion. In a controlled environment which has only Jews and disbelievers living alongside one another with no other religious traditions surrounding them, you would definitely find Jews trying to spread the word about God and telling atheists about the grace of God. This is how you had the very first beginnings of Judaism, when Jews would establish the religion in Jerusalem and abolish the worship of any other idols. In a controlled environment with only Christians and disbelievers living alongside one another, you would find a similar attitude from Christians. They would try to spread the word and enlightenment to the disbelievers, showing them the ways in which a person would acquire the grace of God by being a believer and joining Christians in worship, and being a good neighbor and having good manners. In a controlled environment with only Muslims and disbelievers living alongside one another, you would find a similar attitude from Muslims. They would try to spread the word and educate the disbelievers to the existence of God and how to acquire His blessings and favors by joining in ritual prayer and helping the poor and destitute. In all situations, each religious tradition would call non-believers, disbelievers, atheists, agnostics, polytheists, and other types of people towards their religion, because each one of these religious traditions has a religion sent to them from God, which purifies and leads the nations to a straight path. In all cases, the best choice of each situation would be the choice of the monotheistic religion as opposed to disbelief. In other words, if all these religious traditions were present within the controlled environment together, living side by side alongside disbelievers, it would be expected that each one of them would be racing to spread the word to the disbelievers and those who have no religion. In such a scenario, we would find a person's house being visited by all three religion preachers telling them the good news from each of their religious traditions. Unfortunately, in our society, that was made to cause too much of a hassle. The man stated, the disbelievers would not know which religion is the true religion. Here is what everyone went wrong, the servant interrupted. They are all the true religion, but they advertised themselves to be the only true religion, and that was their mistake. Since every preacher of each of the three religions was tasked with giving the good news and teaching people about God, they were tasked with that and only that, to bring people to the worship of the one God, and to shun other idols, and not to worship anything beside him. In other words, they each were tasked with giving people the true facts. However, they added to it and explained that no other religion is true except for their own. By doing that, people started fighting among themselves over the disbelievers. Each religious preacher would pull them towards him and his religion as though they were a luxury. This meant that the mission of each of the religious preachers was not solely to inform people of the message they had received about God, but to also increase their numbers. It is like they made it into a task to recruit people and start formulating an army of believers, although that was not the main reason for a religion in the first place. If people had not fooled themselves by claiming that they would have victory against other believers, a war would not have been needed. The man explained, "Look at us now," blaming everything on the media coverage and advertisement, when it was all a predestined conclusion to religion's disputes. But we can't claim destiny for what had happened. This is exactly why humans have to take the blame for causing destiny to take a turn. Even if it were predestined to happen, even so, since it was predestined to happen, its outcome could have been changed. If each religion claims its right to monotheism and its right to being called the true religion, then, by what each religion has of truth in it, those who follow it would be considered believers. God forbid, if God were to wipe out all Muslims of the face of the earth in one day, it would be improper to call all Christians and Jews who remain on earth disbelievers. God forbid, if God were to wipe out alongside the Muslims all Christians of the face of the earth in one day, it would be improper to call all Jews who remain on earth disbelievers. In fact, God forbid, if God were to wipe out all Muslims, Christians, and Jews of the face of the earth in one day, it would still be improper to call every human who remains living on earth a disbeliever, especially if belief is tied to the human's free will, spirituality, and mental state. What is belief? Belief is knowing without a shadow of a doubt that there is something else. In the case of the disappearance of all the religions, belief would be knowing that there is a creator who created the whole world, who is all-powerful, sovereign, and supreme over all his creation. Even if all religions were to be taken away from the world and our world be returned to the days when no prayer would be prayed, no mosque visited, no church or synagogue attended, there would still be a shred of belief in humans that cannot be taken away, unless God wills. There has to be a way for even disbelievers to acknowledge the Creator and not cause him further anger when his wrath would befall the earth. There has to be some way to shut them up, and that would not be fear,